everyone, this is Mrs. Curtin. Today we are going to learn how to graph in Google Sheets. The very first thing you want to do is you want to get into your Google Drive. And when you're here, you're going to want to click New, and then you will click Google Sheets. What this does is it opens up a brand new Google Sheet. Depending on the assignment, I'll either have you turn it into Google Classroom or I'll have you share it with me, but it'll be specific in the assignment. What you'll do with each assignment is you're going to start off by typing your name at the top. That way I know it's yours, and I don't have to click back and forth to search for whose it is. Then you're going to write down what the assignment is. So I'm going to write down Mrs. Curtin, density of aluminum, since I'm demonstrating our aluminum lab, or our density lab here, excuse me. When you're doing your graph, your x-axis is always going to be on the left, and then your y-axis will be on the right. You are tasked to create two graphs, a mass versus volume graph, and then a volume versus mass graph. For demonstration purposes, I'll just choose the mass versus volume. Okay, again, we're creating the two graphs in order for you to look at the slope and determine what the formula is for density. So if it is a mass versus volume, that means our volume is on our x-axis and our mass is on our y-axis. All right, we want to include our units up there so that you cannot, so you don't mess up your graph, because if you put your units in with the numbers like I'm typing in this data set here, you will actually not be able to do your graph. And then I know we've been working on sig figs, and notice that when I typed in 7.0, it just went back to 7. So I'll look for sig figs on your paper portion that you're turning in, so make sure everything is written there. And notice again, I'm keeping all units out of the number area and just at the top label. What you're going to do next is you're going to highlight the numbers. Okay, I did that by hitting Shift, and then I arrowed over to incorporate all of my data. I'm now going to hit Insert. I'm going to hit Chart. I'm not going to take the recommended charts. You're going to go to Chart Type and Scatter. Scatter is typically the graph type that we're going to use. And then you're going to click Scatter, and then you're going to click Insert. Now what we need to do is we need to label our graph. We're going to right-click in the graph area. You're going to hit Advanced Edit. What this allows us to do is just have one spot where we're going to edit all of the axes. So your chart title, okay, you can either do your Y versus X, or you can call it the density of aluminum. All right, so in this case, I'm just going to title it density of aluminum. And then this will, just to give it a little more specificity. I'm now going to scroll down because my chart title is done. You can see now that it's inserted over here. I'm going to go to axes. All right, this is a drop down which will allow you to switch back and forth between horizontal and vertical. I'm going to keep it horizontal, and what we had on our horizontal was our volume. And I'm going to add my unit here. I'm going to click the drop down and go to left vertical. And on our y-axis, we had mass, and then I'm going to keep my units as well. Notice how we now have volume and mass as our axes titles. In order to figure out what our density is, we need to insert an equation, since we're trying to figure out if density is mass over volume or volume over mass. And in order to do that, we need to have the slope. So to get our slope, okay, what you can do is you can actually insert a trend line, okay? So you need to insert a trend line, and we'll say a linear trend line here, because what that does is that opens up the label for our trend line. And instead of custom, you're going to want to hit use equation. All right, so now we can hit update, and we're back at our graph. You can see that we have a completed labeled graph, and then on our right here, we now have a linear equation, and our slope here can tell us the density. So you can use this graph, and then you're going to use your second one, and then you're going to derive the density formula. Thanks for listening.